talk show. It's really great to have you with us, and in person actually, for the second ever in-person Super Talk Show interview.
Thank you so much for having me. No, I'm so excited to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you may know, Raquel is actually the president of the Harvard Crimson, which is Harvard University's independent student-organized newspaper. And can you maybe give an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Heidi mentioned, my name is Raquel. I am a rising senior at Harvard College. I study history and literature. I have a minor in government, a secondary as we call it here. And I've been president of the Crimson since January, which basically means that I oversee all aspects of the operation. So I kind of sit in between the business manager who handles the business side and the managing editor who handles the news side, and I'm involved in kind of all of those decisions. It's my third year at the Crimson, and before that I was on the news team, so I reported on Harvard Police, and before that reported on the Kennedy School of Government.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's really impressive.
Thank you.
Can you maybe tell us how like your journey with journalism began, maybe from a young age, and how'd you like integrate that into the Harvard University newspaper?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm originally from Colombia, from Bogota, Colombia, and both my parents are actually journalists, so I always grew up kind of around journalism and seeing what they did, and oftentimes they would, I would beg them to like let me go with them to work and to their newsroom, and so they would take me like on Saturday nights when I didn't have school, so I just kind of grew up in that environment that's like really fast paced and really exciting, and where people are like very close because you spend a lot of like long hours together. So I had kind of always grown up around it and always been really interested in it. But I don't know, as kind of life went on, I steered away from journalism a little bit, kind of got into different subjects, tried my hand at different things. But when I got to the Crimson, it was my sophomore year of college, and I walked in here for an open house because I was thinking of maybe comping, which is the process by which we train reporters and different people on the Crimson. I walked into the newsroom, I just like felt like I was at home. It was the same feeling I had when I was little, when I went to work with my parents, of just like fast-paced, close environment, just like kind of keeping a pulse on the news and all the things that were happening. So I knew I had to join the newspaper. Yeah.
Oh wow. And today you're actually sitting in the president's office. So that's really a long way going from, when you're born into the journalism world. So can you tell us more about like your early on experience? What do you see as like the difference between your parents' work and here at the Crimson?
That's a really good question. Well, I mean, I guess the first thing is the scope of things that we report on. So my parents have kind of had different journalism jobs throughout their lives, but usually have always centered around issues of like Colombian current events, and then also like American, Latin event or current events, especially with like a focus of the like Hispanic or Latinx people, and I think that's like the first thing, and they are working in the like professional newsroom, so it's definitely a different kind of scope to that. And then for me, it was I here at the Crimson, like the purpose of kind of holding power accountable and reporting truthfully and accurately stays the same, but the things that you report on are different, because we really try to report on things that matter to Harvard stakeholders and holding the Harvard administration or the powers that be here accountable. So that's one big way it's different. I think the other way it's different is that the Crimson is a much smaller newsroom than a lot of other places, which is both a blessing and a curse. I think it's a curse because you just have to like do so many more things as one singular job, and that could be really difficult. But at the same time, it's a blessing because you get to do so many different things, and I don't think there's really many other places where you could have a hand in like the business and the content and the design of the newspaper and what actually goes like in the words of the stories than you could if you were a student journalist or a journalist at the Crimson.
That really makes sense. And I want to touch on what you first just said, accountability, which is a good point that you brought up. Being Harvard student, you guys definitely have a lot of coursework, other extracurricular activities. So here, what are some like accountability metrics that you have in place to make sure that there's always contents on the newspaper, be it digital or, just printed out newspapers.
Yeah, so you mean like to make sure that it's getting printed, or to make sure that we're holding the university accountable?
No, there's like enough, actually holding news editors accountable. Like,
got it.
Every day writing contents.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, because I think that the balance that you kind of strike as a student organization is that it's very much volunteer based, so people do it because they want to and because they love it. So you can only hold people accountable to like such an extent, because they're not like necessarily getting paid, or it's not like a contract of sorts. But I think what really helps is just having leaders who can inspire people to want to do this work. So for example, our managing editor Jasper is wonderful, and he's just always pushing to make sure reporters feel inspired and feel like the accomplishment of pursuing stories even when they're hard. He makes sure that like people see that light at the end of the tunnel. And obviously we have organizational things, like we have check-ins on a daily basis with reporters and different things to make sure that we're kind of keeping tabs and making sure people have the resources they need to do the reporting. But I think more than accountability itself, we have like a lot of inspiration that needs to happen for people to want to be in here and to want to work at the newspaper.
I guess you talked a lot about other people, but as the president of the Harvard Crimson, what are like quotes or inspirations that you live by that keeps you in the office every day? And you mentioned before in the SJA, the Summer Journalism Academy, that you basically just live here.
Yeah, I do, it's true. I mean, I think that one of the things that just like keeps me really inspired is like, even if you look around the office, there's like so much history that we are surrounded by, and this is an organization that has existed for almost 150 years. And there's this one story basically where like the person who was Crimson president in 1904 was actually Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he went, and he went on, of course, to become president of the United States some years later. And it was I believe it was an anniversary of the Crimson, the day that he was supposed to get inaugurated. I believe it might have been the 50th anniversary, And he got an invitation from the editors to come join, the celebration. And they were all really eagerly waiting for him to come. And then last minute they got a telegraph that said, had a prior commitment. I'm sorry, obviously, that he was getting, sworn in as president of the U.S. But he said, keep the old sheep flying.
Right.
And that's kind of the unofficial motto that we have around here. And it basically just means that you have to kind of like keep the excellent standards of journalism that we have around here, just like in everything we do. So I think that's something that I have always found very kind of inspirational in this role. And when it gets tiring or hard or anything like that, just kind of like thinking about all the people who have come before me and everything that has been accomplished to kind of keep that sheep flying, if you will.
Wow, that's a great answer.
Thank you.
I want to ask, because you're a Harvard student yourself, and now I guess I just really want to know like your schedule every day on a daily basis. How much time do you spend in the Crimson, and how do you keep a really good time management habit to make sure that you're not burnt out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, as I mentioned, when I was introducing myself, in addition to kind of being at the Crimson, I'm also a student. Right. So usually what my day looks like is wake up and just go to class. And, as you probably know, like, classes in college work a bit different than in high school. You don't have, like, every class every day, but you have, like, different classes, different days of the week. So, for example, I'll have like maybe 2 to 3 classes on a daily basis that I'll go to. And then mid-afternoon, I'm free, and then I'll usually come here to the building and basically spend the rest of my night here until pretty late at night.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I'll do, it's not all Crimson work, like I'll do homework in here and everything, but just being around the editors and all the people who are putting together the paper is really important to me, to make sure that I'm around. Yeah.
Okay, these are really good answers, and I just want to add like um, the audience for Super Talk Show, they're mostly high school students. So recently, the Harvard Crimson, or a long time ago, they introduced something called the Summer Journalism Academy. Can you kind of pitch or give the audience a little introduction about what that entails and how they can get involved?
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
come here next year, or I don't know when, to the Crimson Building.
Absolutely. No, I mean, we would love to have you. Essentially, the Summer Journalism Academy is a program that we host over the summer, and it teaches you kind of everything you need to know about kind of journalism, and particularly journalism at the Crimson. So we give you a crash course on everything from news to editorial to sports to kind of all of the different departments that we have within the newspaper. And then by the end of the newspaper, you are prepared, or by the end of the academy, you are prepared to put together your own newspaper, put together your own articles, and kind of really put to work the skills that you've learned here. So if you're thinking at all about like student journalism or journalism in general, whether it's at your high school or in college later on or just as a career, definitely encourage you to come here, because in my opinion there's like no better place to kind of learn from people who are doing it on a day-to-day basis, and with a very unique kind of Harvard Crimson angle.
Yeah, definitely. And I also want to add that I did SJA this year, and actually I met Raquel. She was doing a lecture too there. You definitely get to have fun in a lot of activities, and we really created a tangible newspaper with your name on it as the Crimson Academy editor, one of them at least. And you get to do like Harvard tours, everything, so it's a great experience. Yeah. And to end the interview, I want to ask, what is like one quote that you can give to the super audience about maybe your motivation or just anything you learned from your journey here at the Harvard Crimson?
That's such a good question.
It's a question I ask every Super Talk Show guest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that there's a quote that stuck with me my whole life. It's actually in Spanish, which my mom said to me just growing up, and it's "Ánimo gladiadora," which means there's no direct translation necessarily, but it's like keep moving forward like gladiator. And it's a quote that my grandpa said to her growing up, and it just basically is like keep going and keep pushing. And then along with that, another one that she always said is "para atrás ni para coger impulso," which means don't take a step back, even if it's to kind of propel yourself forward. So it's like just keep moving forward and keep, keep going and keep persevering no matter kind of what comes up. And I really think that if I had to sum up kind of my time at Harvard or even at the Crimson with a quote, it would be that, because I think that it's really taught me to just make sure that you don't let like challenges hold you back, and that you keep moving forward no matter what.
Wow, that's a great ending to this interview. And honestly, I've been learning Spanish for 4 years already, and I still didn't understand those quotes, so I will keep moving forward with Spanish too. So yeah, thank you so much for sitting down with us and giving this really great lesson to the Super Talk Show audience and myself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you and to be with you guys. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye.